My name is Alex with DIY Ready, and today we're gonna make a lamp out of reclaimed pallet wood from a pallet. And this is what it's gonna look like in the end. You're gonna be able to adjust it by simply releasing these wing nuts, and you could adjust the arms at different lengths, and it's really cool. So I'm gonna show you guys how to do this. You can do it for relatively cheap because the pallet wood is free. Sometimes you can find pallets just lying around on the street. Just don't go to grocery stores taking their pallets out the back because apparently that's illegal. So what you're gonna need for this project is you're not gonna need a whole pallet, just little sections. I have a 2-foot piece for the longer part of the arm. I also have a 1.5-foot piece for the shorter part of the arm, 2 6-inch segments for the foot, which is gonna attach those to the base. And I haven't even measured this out, it's probably about 2 feet. And it's just a piece of the wider board that you will find on the pallet. Here's the supply list you need. Once you have all of your supplies, you're gonna begin making your lamp by attaching the feet to the base of the lamp. Start by taking your 2-foot piece of board, and you're gonna sandwich them between the 6-inch feet. We're just using the 2-foot piece as a spacer for right now, so we're gonna lay it down flat like that. And this is what your clamps come in handy for. If you don't have clamps at home, you could probably do this with your hands, but it would be a lot more difficult. So after you clamp these 2 pieces together, it'll hold this board in place. So you want to clamp it in the back like this, and this will hold everything firmly in place like so. So you can kind of rotate it. And this makes it easier to flip it over and now drill the holes that you need to attach the feet to the base. The first thing you want to do here is just take your measuring tape, which is right here, and measure the distance between the edge of your baseboard and the foot, which in this case is about 1 inch. Now we're gonna flip it over and take your pencil and mark at about 1 inch and go over just a little bit so that the screw goes through the foot board. After you've made one mark, space another mark out at about 2.5 inches, in approximately the same place. It doesn't have to be perfect. And then you're gonna take your drill and put your pilot bit in. And you're gonna drill 2 holes where you made those marks. So once you've drilled your pilot holes, you can take your pilot bit out and put your Phillips head bit into your screwdriver, or your drill, rather. And take 2 1.25-inch screws. Begin them by threading them with your fingers. And then use the drill to fasten it. And you're gonna repeat those steps for the other 2. Now that you've fastened the base of your board to the 6-inch pieces with screws, you can remove the clamps. And you can remove this middle board, which we were just using as a spacer. And you'll see that now you have your 2 feet, which are attached to the board at the proper width. And so what you're going to do next is take that same board, and this time put it in like this, because this is going to be the arm. So you want to put it in the way that it's going to be. And we're going to just make them all flush so that they make a right angle at the top of the feet. And you can just do this by clamping it with your hands, or you can take a clamp. That might make it a little bit easier so that it doesn't move when you're drilling. And now take your drill and take out the Phillips bit and put in your 1/2-inch drill bit. Just gonna go ahead and drill through all 3 of these boards. And it might be a good idea for you to have a piece of scrap wood It could be anything you have lying around, just so that when the drill bit goes through, it doesn't go into your nice table or your workbench. So now I'll unclamp the boards. And you'll see that this piece actually split when I was drilling it, but that's fine. I personally don't care. It's still going to work all the same. It's going to have a crack in it. I think that looks kind of cool, but if you don't want your board to split, start out with a smaller drill bit, probably a 3/8 or something like that. Once you have your holes, take your 1/2" carriage bit. Just go ahead and pop that carriage bit straight through. It should go through pretty easily. And take your wing nut and fasten it. Just go ahead and keep fastening it. You'll notice that there's a little bit of a gap there, but this will close that gap off nicely. When you're doing this end of the carriage bolt might rotate, so make sure you're holding it in place with your thumb, and that will get a nice tight fitting. And then you have an arm that rotates fairly easily, and it doesn't fall over. If you get the right amount of tightness, it won't fall over, it won't be too hard to move, and it will act like a normal lamp arm. So after that, we're going to want to attach the smaller part of the arm to the upper section of your lamp, the lower lamp arm. And we're going to do the same thing by first clamping these two boards so that they make a right angle. It doesn't have to be perfect. It's going to look good either way. Put your piece of scrap wood under the two boards, and again, take your 1/2" drill bit and drill through them about where the middle is. Take another 1/2" carriage bolt and feed it through, and then take your wing nut and screw it on. Now we're going to be attaching this piece to your paint can, so that this piece attaches to the paint can, and then we fasten that to the upper arm like we did with the other two arms. And the first step that we're going to need to do is drill 2 holes through this piece. And you could do that just by eyeballing it. Hold this piece over your paint can. Just mark two spots that feel appropriate. To drill these holes through the board, I'm using a 15/64 bit because I had a 15/64 machine screw lying around. So it doesn't matter what bit you use as long as it's the same size as your screw. Just make sure that the screw will be able to go through the hole after you've drilled your hole and not fall out the other side because you picked a bit that was too big. And take your scrap board again, place it down, put this board that we're going to be drilling through on top, and just quickly drill these holes through. Once you have your holes drilled through, take your paint can and place the board on top of the paint can like this, and take your awl, or if you want, you can just use this drill bit and drill through the can, but this will punch through the metal fairly easy, so I'm going to use that. So after you have your first hole, take your screw that you have and thread it through. On the inside of the can, it's a little tricky. You can't see it, but you'll be able to see it with your eyes. The screw pops through on the inside, and you're gonna take your nut and you're gonna fit your hand in there, and I have fairly big hands and my hand still fits, so you should be able to do this at home. And if not, just use a bigger paint can. So go ahead and tighten that on until your board is firmly secured to the paint can. And then once you have the first screw in, we're going to repeat that step with the second screw. So now you have 2 screws fastening this board to your paint can. The next step is going to be the wiring. Take your light bulb socket that you have lying around and first strip the ends. When you're stripping wires, if you know the wire gauge, just match that up to the number that you see right here on the top of the wire stripper. But if you don't know your number, start with the biggest hole and work your way down. So that way, if you start with the biggest hole, you'll see that it actually doesn't strip, it just slides right off like that. And then I'm gonna work my way down to the next biggest hole. And it strips like that. Now that I have the 2 wires stripped, I'm gonna take the paint can and I'm gonna punch 2 holes, one for each of these wires so that we can thread them through the back. Just make it, eyeball it so that it's somewhere in the middle.
Metal sound is killer in my ears.
Oh. So now you have 2 holes that we punched through with the awl. So you're gonna take the wire and thread it through the open end of the can. And the holes are fairly bigger than the wires, so it should be easy for you to thread it through. You can go ahead and knot it. We're gonna undo this knot later, but that just keeps it from coming back out of the can when you're trying to do your second wire. So now we have both of the wires pulled through each hole. And you're gonna wanna just tie them simply like that so that they don't pop out. Now we're gonna attach this piece to the upper part of the arm. Take your lamp so far and lie it down. For this, I'm not going to use the clamp, just so I can show you how to drill this without having any clamps. It's not that much harder. Once you have your holes drilled, take your carriage bolt, feed it through the top hole on the upper arm, and then feed that through your lamp arm. And then screw a wing nut onto it. Now you have the structure of the lamp completely done, and the next part is going to be wiring it so that you could plug it into an electrical outlet. To begin wiring, take your lamp cord that you have, it could be anything you have lying around, or you can go to any hardware store to get it, and begin by separating these 2 strands. You can use a box cutter and your piece of scrap wood to separate the strands. Be very careful when you're using box cutters. They're very sharp, and you always want to cut away from you so that you don't end up getting hurt. Put your lamp wire on the piece of scrap wood. Put the tip of the box cutter between the strands of wire, and then cut away from yourself like that. And then you could pull these 2 strands apart like that. They peel apart fairly easily. Take your wire strippers, and once again, if you don't know the gauge, start with the biggest one. For us, I think that's going to be the gauge that we need. And then strip the coating off the wire to expose the copper ends like that. So take your lamp wire and twist it around the wires of your bulb socket like that. Then we're going to cover the exposed wire with electrical caps. And you do this just by placing it over the top and twisting. Do that with the other one. If you want, you could think of all kinds of cool ideas of how to conceal these. You could put tape over them. I think it looks cool the way it is, so I'm just going to leave it. Once you have these wire caps on, secure without any exposed wire, which is really important because it's going to be live, and you don't want to end up shocking yourself, take the other end of your lamp wire and do the same thing to separate the strands. Once you've repeated the steps with the other end of your lamp wire, go ahead and strip them off. And take your electrical plug. This has a thick sheath with some cotton fiber on the inside. We're gonna do the same thing that we did to separate these strands with this cord. We're gonna make a slit down the sheath and peel it apart. And what we want is to get these two wires, one white one and one black one. And then if you want, you can clip that stuff off and get it out of the way so it doesn't bother you. And go ahead and strip the wire. Once you have your wires stripped, it's very important to make sure that the white wire coming out of your bulb socket matches up with the white wire that is going to be going into the electrical outlet. I don't want to get into the specifics of why this works. You can go to our website if you want to read about it, but for now, just make sure that you match those two wires up. A good way to do that is just to take the white wire and then to follow it all the way through to the end. I'm not going to do it now. But once you get to the end, you'll have your white wire and you can just twist it around the white wire on the electrical plug like that. Then twist the black wire around the other black wire. And as we did up here, cap them with electrical caps. And make sure that there are no exposed pieces of wire. Again, this is going to be a live wire, so you want to make sure there's nothing exposed before we plug it in. So now, you just take a light bulb, any regular light bulb will do, and you screw it into your lamp. So after you've screwed your light bulb in, you can go ahead and plug it in. And now you have an awesome lamp that you've made for cheap that'll help you at your workbench. If you want, you can go ahead and take the cord and tape it to the arm behind it or staple it, whatever you want to do to help you get it out of the way. Also, what you can do is add an inline switch, which looks like this. You can also get it from a hardware store, and we have a tutorial on that as well. Please go to our website to check out other tutorials. Until then, my name is Alex with DIY Ready. I'll see you soon.
I'm going to teach you how to make a real simple adjustable pipe table that will be something perfect for your garage or workspace, and with a little bit of extra work, even be something your girlfriend will let you keep in your house.